Mm. Welcome to the today's episode of the Zoom on Sales podcast. So, guys, I'm your host Abdul Rehman Ilahi, founder and the CEO of Zoom on Sales. And with over a decade of experience in B2B sales, business development, and lead generation, I have the privilege of working in the industry with leaders, like-minded people, and I'm helping them enhance their sales performance and secure high-value speaking and coaching engagements. My journey has been about empowering businesses to unlock their potential. And as you know, we always invited like-minded and successful entrepreneurs. And today I'm very lucky because joining me is the incredible Andi Simon. She's a corporate anthropologist, author, and a speaker known for her unique approach to business strategy and innovation. Together, we will dive into the world of business transformation, exploring and how the anthropology can play a pivotal role in the driving growth and the change within organization. It is going to be enlightening conversation. So let's get started. Hello, Andy. How are you?
Good. How are you, Abdul? It's nice to be here today.
Thank you so much. Like it's an honor to host you.
Well, the world is so small. I'm in New York and you are in Pakistan, and we are like next door neighbors. So, and the conversation and your topic is exactly what I'm all about as a corporate anthropologist that helps organizations and their people change. And humans hate to change. So it is a challenge.
Yeah. So I want to give more introduction about Andy to my audience because Dr. Andy Simon is a highly respected corporate anthropologist, author, and a consultant known for her expertise in helping organizations adapt to change and thrive evolving environment. Like with over 25 years of experience, she specializes in applying the anthropological insights to the business strategies, enabling companies to understand their culture and embrace their innovation. So Dr. Simon is the founder of the Simon Associates Management Consultant as well, where she has guided numerous clients through transformative process. She is also a speaker and the author of the award-winning book, which is On the Brink, a fresh lens to take your business to the new heights. So, Andy, very quickly, I'm going to ask first question. Would you like to please explain how your background in anthropology influences your approach to business consulting and how it helps the organization navigate the change?
Abdul, one of the things I've learned over the years is that being a social scientist, very
Mhm,
often it's elusive what a business organization might be like. So,
mhm,
in my background, I spent a decade as a cultural anthropologist, and my expertise was on change. And I worked on immigration and return migration, particularly to the Mediterranean, to Greece. And I was interested in how people adapted what was their traditional culture to new environments. And I'm sure you can appreciate how challenging that is. But you uproot yourself and you come. And then in 1981, my husband was an executive at Citibank, and he introduced me to a bunch of Citibankers. And they said, "Why
mhm,
don't you come help us change? We're going through deregulation, and the times they are changing." So I gave myself a leave of absence from the university. I'd gotten my tenure. I'd be doing anthropological research. I got my postdoc. That career path seemed pretty well set up. But I was very curious about how could you apply it to a business setting. And so I got into Citibank as a consultant to help them go through the early deregulation phase, launching
mhm,
new services like direct access or bank by personal computer, and begin to see how to begin to change the organization from one where people came to work from 9 to 12 and 1 to 3, and instead to one where people held themselves accountable to sales, service, and delivering results. And as you know, when you're changing the way people think about themselves and do things, it's very hard. The habits take over. They don't know what the new is. And they are unfortunately very uncomfortable with unknowns. Humans are uncomfortable there. So it was for me a learning experience. I spent 14 years in banking. I became SVP of a savings bank, and I bought their first computers, their first ATMs, and I saw people fry. They were very concerned and frantic about it. And slowly I watched how we could get people transformed, what was really my training ground. So I spent 14 years in banking. I was executive vice president of a bank that had made an acquisition too fast, and we had to develop all new data systems. It was interesting as a training ground because you cannot get this in college. You have to get it by experience. And then I got into healthcare during the managed care period. And I had doctors screaming at me, I can take care of patients, I just don't know how to get them. It was most interesting to watch highly trained people unable to adapt to a new environment. But after 9/11 here, I went into my own business and I launched it as a corporate anthropologist, which I had become, who really understood how to help organizations change. What I also learned was that people hate change. The mind is set up to live the story that's in it. Whether it's good or bad or true or not, we believe it to be true. I often say the only truth is there's no truth. But once you believe that to be the way it should be, then changing it is most uncomfortable for you. And your brain is sending all kinds of hormones into the brain saying, stop this, flee it, fear it, appease it, fight it. And so it becomes one of the most interesting approaches that I have developed, including a change map process where you can see where you're going and map how you get there. All the visualization that people need to understand why leaving where they are now and going somewhere else is a lot like a journey or a destination that they're going to move to with small wins and a process where they can practice the new and give up the old more comfortably. And these are very fast changing times. The fourth industrial revolution is transforming so much of what people do in the office. Work isn't what it used to be, and it isn't what knowledge workers had. It is a completely new environment. And so now the question is, how do we help people really see, feel, and think in new ways? People ask me, what does an anthropologist do? And I say, most humbly, we hang out. Our job is to observe. And you're smiling because at the end of the day, the only way we can learn is to see what others are doing and help them see it as well. Because once you're doing it, you can't see it. The mind is very happy just being habit driven. And there's not a lot of thinking going on when you get through your day. And that was good, even if it wasn't. And it becomes a wonderful experience working with people as they are going through transformation. So that's how I've evolved. And that's how I brought corporate anthropology from I think I am to a whole business line, business anthropology, corporate anthropology. Others are adopting. And there are folks in the industry now that I'm in awe of what they're doing in emerging technologies like Mad Arts. I mean, others who have seen what's possible and are beginning to embrace how the social sciences can help their business increase those sales and begin to grow. So that's my story.
Wow, amazing! Like it's full of energy and all those things. Like it's amazing. Like so, Andy, I want to know about your book. Like in your book, On the Brink, you talk about the concept of corporate anthropology. Could you please elaborate on how companies can leverage this to be better understand their internal culture and the external markets?
Great question. And people say to me, well, how can I do this too? And I often say to them, the first thing I do when I'm hired is I take whoever is my the people who are really asking the questions, and I take them out to do something simple, to spend a day in the life of their own clients. Go watch what they're doing with whatever services you're providing or whatever technology they're supposed to be using. See what works well from their perspective, not from your own. So I can't tell you how many times I've had clients, even in a store decoration business, who go in to watch how they're being used, to only see that all the technology they put into them isn't working at all. Or, you go in and you see high-tech companies going in to see how their technology is being applied, only to see they're using a little bit of it, not all of it. I've often had clients who have said to me, if I watch what they're actually doing, I see what they really need. And I said, yes, that is the joy of being an observer, not knowing. One client and I went to one of their clients, and I love to take them to meet their clients on their grounds. And he was talking about all different ways they could use his product. And we walked out and we wrote down our notes about what we heard. And he said to me, "How did you hear that? And I heard this." I said, "Because I'm looking for the gaps and the opportunities, and you're looking to see how it can fit into what you know and you do. So the value I bring is some fresh perspective." So one thing I urge people to do is go out and spend a day in the life of a customer. Undercover Boss was a TV series here that sort of illustrated that. You can watch some of them, but it's the same idea. Go be, and people don't care that you're observing them. They go about it in a minute and they forget you're there. The second thing I love is that people live the stories in their mind. They think their story is their reality. It is for them, but there is no reality. So the question is, what's their story? And as you begin to let people tell you their story, begin to put a couple of stories together to begin to see where there are patterns or where they're all different. We work with a electric generating company, and every one of the 12 people on the management team had a different story to tell us about what they did. And when the CEO listened to them, he said, "My goodness, they're all working in different companies." I said, "Yes, what we haven't done is built a single brand story or operational story where they all understand how they work well together. And if you're going to change the story, then we need to begin to tell the story in different ways for all of them to begin to embrace it." Humans are very creative. They will never say, "I don't know." They'll make it up. And so, regardless of what you ask of them, if they don't know, they'll make it up. So, if you don't tell the story about how we do things over and over again, they will be very creative and create one that makes them the hero in it. You're never the hero. They love to be the hero in their own stories, and that gives them a certainty that this is the way it ought to be done. Humans are very interesting. So, the second thing I ask people to do is listen to those stories. Now, people say, "Aren't there data points?" I said, "Yes, I like data, and I like really to capture data, and I do survey research. We do all kinds of mall intercepts. But when you put it together, one of the early lessons in anthropology is out of context, data has no meaning. And so when you look at it, you impose on that data what you think it means. But at the end of the day, unless you hear it from the person who is giving it to you, you're making up your own interpretation of it. And I used to teach a wonderful course for healthcare strategists. Your data is talking to you. Can you hear it? It's the same thing for most companies. Yes, the data is talking to you, but what is it really saying? And some of the wonderful ways to be a participant observer is if your client will let you come in and actually do things with them. Go on sales calls with them. And if you're not going on the sales call with them, let them tell you what happened on the call as best their story can capture it. Because your job is to expand their view of their business, see where opportunities are. And I often think of myself on the gap between what their customers are trying to do and what they think they're trying to do. And often that gap is big enough to open up entirely new business. Does that help as an intro to anthropology in a few moments here?
Yeah, like I believe that's kind of elaboration, details that you are going to be explained. It is going to be help hundreds of companies, and yeah. So we can go for the third question, which is going to be what are some common challenges you see companies facing today, and when it comes to embracing innovation, and how can they overcome these obstacles?
That's a wonderful and a very large question, but I'll go backwards a little bit. The first thing, if you're going to overcome the obstacles to change, is embrace change as a friend. And I know that sounds peculiar, but you yourself are fighting it. So if you're leading an organization or a team, I've been working with a 14 hospital system for 6 years now. And the Leadership Academy we teach about how do you make change your friend? How do you begin to see it not as an adversary, but an ally? It's in the story. So as a leader, you need to begin to see changes as opportunities that are coming. The second thing is if you understand that people fight this, you need to take them and show them how. You can't play a game, tennis or golf or cricket or anything, without some practice time. And often we put people into new things without much training or development. So don't make training and development an afterthought. Make it the primary thought. Because the first thing the brain is going to do is want to know, how do you do that? And if it says, well, I don't know how, I'll go back to where I know. So you're building a whole new habit. And if you're going to do that, let's start small and let's start with lots of practice. And I don't think we think of that in the world of business like you would in a sport. But why not? I mean, you're trying to reach a goal with people who may be less than competent in the new ways of doing things. So if you can make change your friend and begin to see that our job as leaders is to make it very comfortable for our staff to embrace the new, then you're going to have to spend time building new habits and beginning to show them why this is better. Just because it's new, maybe free, doesn't mean it's better. And the brain doesn't particularly want to go there. And the social habits are very undermining. I often use teams of 10 or 12 people to become the leaders. I said, here's the problem. Humans are copycats. We really do like to see what you're doing and we'll do what you do. We think that's good. And if you aren't changing, they're not going to change. So if I can get a team of people to embrace the changes and begin to lead forward, show how it's done, others can then see it and see that it's okay. They're not losing their job and they haven't been demoted and they haven't failed. And I can do that too. And each of you mentioned the book On the Brink. There are 8 stories in there of clients. Each of them had to do this as well. But as they began to go through it, they began to turn change from painful to pleasure. And the mind likes to go after pleasure. And all of a sudden, they were having such fun that they could then see the opportunities that it engaged. One of the healthcare systems that I worked with never really went after men, even though men really didn't have doctors. And once they began to see how much fun it was to approach a whole new market segment and sell them in a different way, often they went to their barbershops to talk to them. They went to their churches with the pastor. They began to think about them differently than they did women. And next thing you know, they began to come into certain kinds of events and begin to see the hospital as an ally in their health and well-being and not something they went to when they were broken or sick. It's a change in the whole mind. So, Abdul, for your listeners, if you can make change your friend and begin to try the new and practice it, you'll begin to see how others will follow you into some new territory with joy. And then you have to keep feeding them, because once you stop, they'll go back to where they were. And so keep pulling them along. And the times are changing, as you know yourself, for your own business.
Yeah, exactly. And that's an amazing point of view. So, Andy, how do you guide the companies in identifying and adapting to the subtle cultural shifts that can have a significant impact on their business success?
Culture, anthropologists have long spoken about culture and culture change. The culture is several things. First, it's actually what you do. We think of it as what we believe. But when you watch people, and the mergers and acquisition world is full of failures because they look at one culture and another culture and they say, well, they'll get along, but they do things completely differently. So start with what people are doing, because that's where the culture begins. Then on top of that, they're playing roles in this. I like to think of it as a theatrical performance. They know the roles really well. And as you're watching them play their roles, they get applause when they do a good job. Metaphor works well. They've played Macbeth all their careers, and now you want them to play Hamlet, but they don't have a script, and they don't have any way of getting applause, and they don't know where to stand on the stage. And so from a metaphor perspective, they really don't know how to play their new roles. Once they start to, your culture will begin to embrace it and give it positive applause or feedback. The thing that follows the behavior are the values, the beliefs, and the symbols of how we do things here. So if you look at the old symbols of how you did things in the old way of doing it, a Macbeth story, you got the staging all there, but now you're coming to a new place. The theater is different. The theatrical performance is different, and you better put some new symbols up, tell new stories over and over again so people know they've moved to a new country, a new culture, and they are now able to be players there. I like to use the metaphor of theater or acting because people say, well, I can't do that. I said, well, if actors can change their roles, why can't you change your role? Oh, I said, it's not who you are, it's what you do and what you believe to be true and how you see the reality that you're doing it in and why it matters. So, the most exciting part about it is as they begin to change the culture. Now, different kinds of culture. The entrepreneurs I work with are full of ideas and they can get everyone all riled up every day about new ideas they thought about last night. But every one of them tells me they need a strong type A who can give them structure. The opposite of an entrepreneurial culture is a very rules driven one. Banks are very rules driven, very regulated. Those industries have very little room for risk taking. So you follow the rules with great authority. Now you can think about the two tense differences between an entrepreneur who needs rules and a rule driven culture that needs some ideas and innovation. And so that's become fascinating. The other two, and I have my foursome here, my other two is that there are companies that are very market driven. They look at the data, they look at the competition, and they are out there. I had some firms that were so market driven they couldn't get along and they couldn't let new ideas in. They only counted the results. It was wonderful, except not fun. And then there are family firms and others who are so collaborative and team oriented that they all want to get along even if they're not getting anything done. And so, as you can hear about different kinds of cultures, we use an organizational culture assessment instrument, an OCAI, to assess them. It gives you a great picture of how people see it, what they would prefer to be. And next thing you know, you can begin to say, how do you do this? And each time I've done it, people go, it's a graph. And they go, oh, that's exactly right. We are so family oriented, we don't get anything done. Or we get everything done, but we don't get along. Or we're entrepreneurs, but we need some structure, so they turn into good business practices. Most successful around the middle, where ideas can flourish within a structure and results are embraced with collaboration and teamwork. And I find that those four, collaboration, clan, creativity, and competition, are more than enough to think about as you're assessing your own culture. But look at the behavior and see how people are performing. And it's great fun to begin to move. Every time I deal with an entrepreneur, I go, but you have no structure, so you cannot succeed. And every rigid organization says, well, how am I going to get a little ideas flowing here? At a hospital who said, oh, we can't do that. I said, well, you can't be innovative if everything can't be done. Anyway, Abdul, that's the kind of pleasure I get out of helping companies change their culture.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree with you. I believe the systemization and the structure is the key to success in any business. So I'm 100% agree with you. So with this is the last question that I'm going to be asked from you, like with your experience in helping the organization through transformative processes. What key strategies would you recommend for businesses looking to remain competitive in rapidly changing industries? And what is the process if someone is looking for your help, like kind of paid consulting? So how they can approach you?
Two questions, and I'll answer how you can find me second. The word competitive is an interesting word. I'm a blue ocean strategist, and we work with companies to make them creators of market space, not just compete in them. So in the old world of strategy, you competed in a pretty stable market space. You cut out your share, and you added value, you reduced costs, and you knew your market really well. But the markets are moving. And Blue Ocean Strategy came out in 2005. Renee Mabon and Chime Kim wrote a marvelous book about how the strongest companies thrive not by competing, but by creating. And you don't have to go too far out of your comfort zone. I tell people sometimes you have to create a new sandbox. But at the end of the day, if you stay so fixed in what you know, competing can only work if the market is growing. And if it's not growing, then you're going to have lots of competition who are going to be stealing each other's companies, each other's clients, and trying to survive. Roll-ups have been, pardon me, very disastrous for our mid-sized clients because their clients got rolled up and nobody wanted to use them. And they had to create new value innovatively. to open a new market space. So if you're thinking about simply competing better, go for it. But make sure there's a market big enough for your way of doing things. And if not, begin to think, how do I add value innovatively to open up a new market space? I can be found in LinkedIn is Andi Simon, and you can find me there. But my website is simonassociates.net, and my books are on andysimon.com. And they all have contact me forms there. But, info at simonassociates.net comes right to me. And I really do love to share with people. I'm going to add one little more pinch in here, and that is I have a podcast called On the Brink with Andi Simon. Go subscribe to it, because I try to bring to you ideas from people who can help you, like today, think about things through a fresh lens, open your mind to new ideas, and enjoy change. Make it your friend. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And it's an honor for me, Andy, that you helped me on my show. And see you soon. And bye bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Abdul.
Thank you.